If it's a tight line for Georgia, that means they're playing in a big game, and they are this week against the Alabama Crimson Tide. Kalen DeBoer's team winning at Auburn with a gutsy fourth down play late in the fourth quarter. Bama earning their way to Atlanta. The Dogs had earned their way as soon as Texas A&M lost, so we get the what's become the classic matchup between these two teams. I did a query, keep track of all of these things of Kirby Smart and Georgia. And these situations, and Georgia is 4-5 as very narrow favorites or very slight underdogs. There is an exact copy of this situation where Georgia played a team once and then played them in a second time. That was the 17 game where Georgia was against the 17th season against Auburn, where the Dogs were a 2.5 point favorite at Auburn to win that game, and lost. I think is the nicest way to put it. And then went to Atlanta and destroyed Auburn in the fourth quarter to win and go to the Rose Bowl. So that's the sort of game that it's been. I'm going to be dumb enough probably to take Georgia here, just because I think that I think they're playing better than Alabama. Although after the Tech game, it wasn't noticeably better. So the games that are in this range, that Georgia's lost all of them lately. I'll just tell you that right now. 2 of them are Alabama lately. So the 25 Alabama game, the 25 Sugar Bowl against Notre Dame last year, the Ole Miss game last year, the Alabama game last year. Those were all games that were in this Georgia's favored by 1.5 to 2.5, or an underdog by 1.5 to 2.5. Because we don't know. I mean, the line could move. I can't imagine it getting to 3 for either team. But and then earlier, in the 2017 season, Georgia had several of these situations where they were a very narrow favorite or underdog, and they won 3 of the 4 of those games. All 3 of those 4 were games they really had to win. And then, of course, the win at Kentucky, I think, has not been talked about enough. Maybe it's been talked about enough, but that was a really big deal win for Georgia in 2016, Kirby's first season. So we've not seen a ton of these situations out there. Georgia's typically a substantial favorite. They have been most of this season. Of course, the one time they weren't was the game they lost. So that's something I think that people need to expect. Georgia's lost 4 games in a row where they've been very narrow underdogs or favorites. They were an underdog to Notre Dame. That is the only game in the realm of 2.5 favorite to 2.5 underdog. And our buddies over at BetQL, you can look stuff like this up all the time. They give you a lot of data and betting insights into this. Georgia will be the team in white, if I'm not mistaken. So this would be a standard thing. 6 of the 9 times that Georgia's played in these situations, they've been in white. So, and twice they played against Kalen DeBoer. So this is a common thing. Georgia's going to have to get used to this when they play at Alabama. Like next year they'll play at Alabama. This will be a close line there too. But when they've been playing Alabama lately, the lines have been very, very close. The only outlier line between these two schools was the 2018 SEC championship game that saw Alabama as a 13-point favorite, a significant favorite to win that game. And of course, they didn't win until the final play of the game on a Hail Mary that they batted down just the same way that Georgia had to against the Jackets this weekend. So that was a very, I thought that line was way too, they were a 12-point dog in that game. Sorry about that. So that game to me was, that was crazy to me that they were that significant of an underdog. But this, this opportunity, if you want to call it that, for Georgia is significant because there's a narrow chance you can get rid of Alabama for the season. I don't buy that, but it's not nothing. It's not 0% that would happen. So you've got that hanging out there. And then you just have the ability to set your path by going to the Sugar Bowl, by being the number 2 seed. Like there's a lot of reasons for, that are very positive for winning this game. People say, well, why you want to play in this game? Why you want to play this game? Well, you want to play in the game because, again, it gives you the capability to avoid the 1 seed for as long as possible. I mean, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, they're going to run into Ohio State or Indiana in the quarterfinals. Like, that's what's going to happen. And I don't know what will happen in those games. I'm not suggesting that I do know what's going to happen in those games, but it's you want to be ranked as high as you can be ranked in these things. That way, when you're hosting someone, let's say you're hosting someone, that means you're the 5. You're playing James Madison or Virginia, and you're not playing. I mean, you're not in a knife fight with Ole Miss on the road or at home. Just making it even harder to win. So that's the whole point here. I think last season was an aberration in a lot of different ways. First of all, Alabama didn't get into the college football playoff. But secondly, because of the way that the seeding and the mechanisms of getting this thing going, we had to agree to all the stupidity with the road games and the conference champions and all this stuff. But they put when the SEC, Greg Sankey and the Big Ten put their foot down about let's seed this the right way. That was really important because you should not have had Tennessee playing at Ohio State and having Boise State and Arizona State have the week off. I mean that's ridiculous. You should not have had Ohio State playing Oregon in the first round in the quarterfinals of the Rose Bowl. That's absurd. And you should not have had Notre Dame and Georgia in the quarterfinals. I mean, that was wrong. So all of those things were wrong. Ohio State, I think, was the 6, and they were playing the 7 Tennessee. Tennessee was the 7, and they were a road team. So all of those things have gone away. But no, I think really more than all of that, if you're Georgia, it's time to win this game. Like this has gotten silly, and Kirby needs to get these guys to perform at a level that they're capable of against the best teams. That's Alabama. That's Ohio State. That's whoever else is out there. Indiana this year. We've seen that against Ole Miss for Georgia. We've seen that in other seasons we've seen that against Ole Miss. We've seen that against Texas. We've seen so Georgia is not incapable of doing that, but this Alabama has not lost its traits of the default for them is winning. It is for Georgia too. It's just not against Alabama under Kirby Smart. So, it's time. It's probably past time. I mean, had Georgia won the game in Athens like they should have, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. Alabama would be out. They would be 9-3 or whatever it is. They would have been eliminated from the SEC championship, and Georgia would be taking on, I think, Ole Miss actually, not Texas A&M. But there's a bunch of ifs there going on. All the teams I mentioned, all 4 of those are firmly in. I don't see how anyone else from the SEC gets in unless I've forgotten someone. I mean, the 2 championship participants, they're going to be in. I forgot about Oklahoma. The SEC is not going to get 6 teams in. It's just not logistically possible with where the rankings are set right now. It's not going to happen. So that's, does Texas deserve to be in? I know this is not necessarily about deserving. This is about who are the best 10 teams. Okay, let's go play with those 10 teams. And that's it. And then 2 other people get invited. Is Notre Dame one of the best 10 teams? I mean, to me they are, but if for Alabama and Notre Dame both, they better be cheering really hard for Texas Tech because Texas Tech losing to BYU, someone's going away. It's either going to be Alabama if they lose or Notre Dame. So that could be a really rough scenario for Notre Dame on Saturday. But I would say if you're Texas on the outside looking in, don't get blown out at Georgia, and don't lose to the Gators. Really, more than anything, if Texas is 10-2 right now, without that loss to Florida, they may be playing for the SEC championship technically. Is that right? Yeah, is that right? I think it is. Or just don't get destroyed by Georgia. I don't think the loss to Ohio State meant anything. For Alabama, I mean, this has been a really good, really salty, very tough mentally Alabama team. They are not playing great right now. I don't know that they played great the entire season. They played really well from the stretch of Georgia through Tennessee. Before that, really Wisconsin to Tennessee. But before that, Florida State and the next week was not great. I think the quarterback is significantly physically and mentally tough. He makes really good throws all the time. He is a very good pass catcher, like a pass thrower. I don't know what's going on with the receiver situation in Alabama. Bernard seems to be their best guy right now. Ryan Williams, I don't know if he's just not playing. I don't know. So Alabama against Auburn last night, that should not have come down to the last play of the game like it did, but Alabama got stuck. And, they kind of got stuck in mud, and they have been doing that on offense a lot lately. I mean, against Auburn, it's certainly in the second half. Against Auburn, against Oklahoma, the bulk of the game, and then against LSU. So they're now going to go up against a Georgia defense that has really played well lately. They just have. I mean, I think Georgia's given up, very quick math, 31 points in the last 3 games, something like that. It's not been much. Really, it's not been much since the Ole Miss game. So in the run game, Georgia's stopping them. Alabama is having a hard time running it. But, I do think, and we don't know what's going on with Jan Miller. We don't know what's going on with Drew Bobo. So there are some things. Chauncey Bowens, is he healthy? There's some guys, and then Taylor completely looks fine when warming up. So I don't, there's a lot that Georgia can do to get right coming out of this thing, but we got to see it. And, it's time to do it, by the way. I mean, this has gone on way too long. I mean, they should have won the game in Athens for sure this year. Last year in Tuscaloosa, they had their chances, that's for sure. And then in 23, Georgia, that was just, so they've had plenty of sort of wretched losses to Alabama when they thought they'd got over the hump against them. No, you're not over the hump. You're not over the hump at all. You see the hump, and sometimes you climb to the top of the hump, but you don't get over the hump. And so that's what this week is about. Are you going to play well? Are you going to do what you need to do against, your boogeyman, for lack of a better term, and get this going? But Alabama's not going anywhere. Georgia's not going anywhere. These two teams are committed. These two programs and institutions are committed to winning at a very high level, the likes of which we don't see around college football very much. And, look at LSU and the train wreck they've had this season. And it's not even, and they're going to be, it's just been a mess. Alabama and Georgia have not been a mess, and on purpose. And it's not surprising. They're playing for the Southeastern Conference Championship on Saturday. Georgia, a 1.5 favorite for now. Let's see where this thing settles.